Hello, everyone, and welcome to From Fear to Fearless show. This show is all about sharing stories of ordinary people who have done and continue to do extraordinary things despite their fear. Fear is a normal part of growth and change, but for many of us, especially for children, fear becomes a factor, and we all have hard time pushing past our fear. Our mission for this show is to share stories of others who have pushed past their fear and done some amazing things. This show is always for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or anyone who works with children or other parents. I hope the stories we share will ignite and inspire you to share it with kids in your life. I hope these stories will influence and impact their relationship with fear. So I just wanted to, before we get started, share the how the structure of the show is. For the first 20 minutes of the show, we have a special guest here today to talk to us about their fear and their relationship with fear. At the end, if you have to go at the end of 20 minutes, I will continue to our wisdom circle, continue the conversation with our guest. And if you want to stay for that conversation, you can just stay online and continue with that. But otherwise, we have a special guest today. Her name is Kristy Boyd Johnson. She's not only a veteran teacher, but she is a very close friend to me. So, Kristy Boyd Johnson has an extensive and varied teaching background. Besides teaching within the school system, she also tutored kids with learning differences, advocated for them, and homeschooled both individuals and groups. She took upon herself to study under the Riggs Institute and specialized in teaching kids with learning differences to read, write, spell with ease. Christie's vast experience taught her what works and what doesn't work when teaching kids, whether struggling students or gifted. So, Christy, thank you for being here today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Kohila. I'm so excited about the show and seeing you and talking about this. This is really important.
I love the
Fearlessness. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I love the title you chose for your show, the show title, Be Afraid and Be Fearless. I love it. Thank you. So, I want to ask you, did you ever have to have a any story with fear, and how did that start?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think everybody does.
Everybody
Um,
does.
but for me personally, it started basically when I was born because my father was not a nice person, let's say, and, and my mom was, pretty much in it alone. And I mean, I was. My mom. I don't really remember this, but my mom told me that every time I would walk in a room, that my dad would start screaming at me about how everything in the world was my fault. Like
Mm,
I was born, and therefore he has all these problems,
wow.
which
That's a
couldn't have
big
possibly existed because of him, right? Yeah,
wow.
big one.
That's a big burden to carry.
Yes, and that imprint that
Mm,
you know I'm not good enough, and then my family imprinted blame Chris for everything.
mm,
So I basically, if I opened my mouth, I was told, "Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you must be crazy. Oh, poo poo. Shut up. Go sit down. Go. So I did shut up, but didn't shut up my brain
mm,
or my spirit, but I shut up my mouth.
mm,
So I I was a reader. I was one of those kids that started reading. I just read all the time. My mom said my first word was book. I'd bring her a book and she'd read it to me, and then I'd go away and bring her another one. And then and I learned to read. I was reading by 3 and 4, and so I I was lucky in the sense that my teachers kind of left me alone. I wasn't a troublemaker. I was just silent, but I could do all the work and I got everything right. And so they left me alone.
mm,
And it wasn't until high school that I finally realized that this crippling shyness wasn't really me.
mm,
It was something that had been imposed on me. And so the way that I confronted it was I just decided one day that I was going to go up to someone and I was going to say hi and ask them a question about themselves. Like, or say something complimentary, like, oh, I really like your haircut, or something like that, right? So I started doing that, and I made myself do that every day.
Nice.
And it was amazing how fast that fear just went away, because people responded. People love it when you talk to them about them, and then you listen and actually respond. And so I started getting all these friends. I got involved in swim team and choir and had all these friends everywhere, and the shyness just broke. Now I should admit, oh,
No, I was going to just go back there a little bit to stay there, is to
okay.
ask you, you said your parents kind of started with your dad imposing this belief system. You created it and you shut your mouth and be quiet, and that developed into shyness because, of
Mhm.
course, you know. But how did you, that day, like, you know, when you said, I'm going to start talking to a stranger and say something nice, how did that come about? Like, can you tell?
I I read something.
Mm,
I was a reader, and I read something about if you want to meet someone, ask them a question about themselves or give them a compliment about
nice.
something. And it could be very simple. If it's a girl, like, oh, those are cute shoes, or if it's a boy, just like, oh, I saw you at the game, or it could be anything. It could be very, very simple. And I just made myself. And the first time, it was hard. I turned to someone in class and I just said, so I don't even remember what it was. I just said something like, maybe it was about the class or something like that. and, and it just kind of started to roll.
That one success, right? The one time
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
But I love
Yeah.
how you connected with the reading, because sometimes we're always talking to inside of our mind when we are shy. I come
Mm,
from that same place too. You came through. So I
yes.
know how much I told myself about what others are thinking. Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing that came through at that time was that people aren't thinking what what they're thinking of you. They're thinking about what you're thinking of them.
Yeah, exactly.
There. And so if you say something nice and friendly, and just open the door, they're
Yes.
going to respond very well, because they're probably dealing with whatever they're dealing with too.
Yes.
And
Yeah. That's
so,
what I think our kids needs to understand. As you know, as a child, I didn't know that either. I was very shy. I even muted myself, right? So for me, that was it. I didn't realize that we're all going through similar that kind of thinking. So when you do start talking, and when you do go and say something nice like you did, or for me was just speaking it, just speak, is what my ESL teacher told me. Like, you know how to speak, just speak.
yes, well, you had the additional burden of not being a native English speaker.
Yes.
So not only were you trying to learn to speak it, but you were trying to understand it. And that kind of a burden, that's a heavy burden for a
Yeah.
child.
That was the fear of getting made fun of. Would I say something wrong? So I was just like protective mode 24/7. I'm not going to say anything, because what if I say it wrong and I
Yeah.
will get laughed at, right? For you, it was like people told you not to say it from a young age.
Well, I just assumed everybody would think I was crazy or stupid, and but the ironic thing is that when, like, I remember in 5th grade, this girl bully tried to pick on me,
Hmm.
and she said, "You told so and so la 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 about me." And I looked at her and I said, "No, I didn't." And I just turned away and I ignored her, and it
Hmm.
just stopped. And it was, what was really funny about that is, like, I'm thinking in my head, I don't speak to anyone. Why would you think I said something?
Hmm.
And so it just, maybe it occurred to her. I don't know. But there was nothing scary at school for me, except for speaking, that could compare with what was going on at home.
Yeah.
So it was actually better for me when I was at school. The
Yeah.
bully was like, yeah, leave me alone.
And that goes back to what we say to our kids, how we respond to our kids, all they are picking up, especially in the early years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. It's so true. I mean, the weirdest thing is that it's not just my immediate family. It wasn't just my mom and my brother that imprinted this. Chris is to blame for everything.
Mhm.
It's spread through my entire family. And
Mhm.
it's still happening today.
Mhm.
And to the point where I speak up for myself, but it doesn't really matter. But what's really funny is that my mom just recently, like within the last year, has finally like opened her eyes and realized what I've been saying about it. And she's
Yes.
like, "You're right. They do treat you like that. Every time you try to say something, they don't even let you finish a sentence."
Mm.
I'm like, "Ah!"
All these years after. So how did you, so you never got to get a word, like you didn't get a voice in your within your family?
No, no, no. I'm just, oh, there she goes again, that this attitude. And I just don't even, I've gotten to the point now where I'm kind of immune to it. I just don't even care anymore. I create my own, I have my own circle of friends that are totally the opposite. That are the loving, supportive, when they have a problem, they come to me,
Mhm.
and we talk things over. But there's something about being extremely shy that makes you a really good listener
Mm.
and makes you very compassionate,
Yeah.
because you, the suffering that you go through, you can literally start to see it in other people.
Yeah.
And you can say, "I know you're suffering." And that opens huge doors. "I hear you're suffering,"
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
they, yeah,
you get this
communicate.
intuition, the flow of them, their feel. Yeah, it's very true for me too. Like I became a great listener,
Yes.
and I'm very analytical too. Not analytical in judging people, but analytical in picking up parts of their conversation, so I could become. Then I can respond with what they're going through. So then you become a good that compassion. Right? This comes through your conversations because you've been
Yep.
picking up every single little things they said.
Exactly. Exactly. And they feel heard because you are picking up those little nuances.
Yeah.
And then people will love that. And and sometimes it's not every person you meet is going to be your friend. It's just a fact of life. Not
Yes.
everybody, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Neither are you. Nobody is. But generally speaking, in the world, it's very rare that I meet someone, unless they're in my own family, that who doesn't like me.
Mhm, mhm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
family
funny.
dynamics definitely plays a huge role in how we end up becoming. But then you did this because through your reading, you have overcome that. Let me just start doing this with one person. If it's successful, of course, to the other person goes, right? And that
Mhm.
that also sometimes some people, people are sometimes rude or they are probably having bad day. And if you had started with somebody and they kind of didn't take that comment or the compliment you gave in a way, you might have stopped, right? So that's also we have to be when we're teaching our children, we need to be mindful of is that one person way of reaction doesn't determine your own person.
That is such a good point. I've modeled that for my nieces and nephews.
Yes.
And we went into one day I had them with me, and we went into a store, and I have a thing about being nice to the people in the store who are working there, because that's a hard job.
Yes.
And I said, "Hi, how's your day going?" And I got a kind of an angry earful, because obviously something was going on. And the kids were just like, just, but what they saw me do was listen and then say, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're having to go through that. I hope it
Mm.
gets better." And the person visibly calmed down.
Mm.
And so that's what they witnessed. They witnessed, instead of me going back at the person, it wasn't directed at me. It was just a
There's
person doing, yes. So that connection for the kids was, you that if they're screaming, it's not necessarily a personal thing. And even if it is, you can respond kindly.
Yes, absolutely. We don't have to change our state for someone else's state.
Exactly.
We're
Exactly.
still going to be the person, and that's something that as parents we can model that to our kids.
And as teachers,
Yes.
I mean, we've both been in the classroom, and when you have 35, 40, or in my case, 50 students in a classroom, there's a lot of drama.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So I have a question for you. What would you tell your younger self about fear?
Actually, I've talked to they call it your inner child, but your younger version of yourself is,
Mhm.
I would just say everything's okay. Just, it's okay to be who you are, and everything's going to be okay. And just, you know what? Even if you're afraid, do it anyway. Because fear isn't actually, I mean, I don't know if I would say fear is an illusion, but it is an illusion. So since I'm talking to myself as an adult and a child, I can say fear is really just an illusion, a story we tell ourselves, and we can change that story into something better. We can say I once used the metaphor with our analogy with a group of kids that think of fear. Fear is like a big scary monster hiding in your closet, and you're imagining it. It's big fangs and drooling and snarling and claws, but if you look at it, it's actually this big, and it's really just this big, trying to make itself seem like it's so much bigger
Bigger.
and scarier than it is. You just kind of like flick it away and
Love
go
it.
on and do it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can make it bigger by feeding it.
Yes. Don't feed the monster.
Recognize it's a monster and don't feed it.
What is that old Indian proverb about the old wise one said, about there are two wolves in my mind. One is peaceful and one is warlike, and the child learning said, listen to, or how do you know which one is right? And he goes, well, the one you feed is the one that
Yeah.
rules you.
That's
And
nice.
that's
Yeah, because
me
if you
stumbling
start
over that.
listening to this one or this one, it's about listening and validating that. Yeah, I can keep telling myself, I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not like, if I just say it, of course, I'm never going to be good at that. I will never try it either. I'm telling myself I'm not good at it. Why would I go try it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was one of the fears I dealt with. I went to Toastmasters, and my first speech, I had a complete meltdown up on the stage. I was shaking so badly that a whole bunch of people commented, you were shaking. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for noticing. Yeah. And I broke down into tears. I just had a complete meltdown. But I came back the next week and I did it again.
Perfect.
And that first one was the hardest by far.
Yeah.
And after that, and plus the people were very kind and comforting. And two people came over and hugged me.
Crazy. But that's feeding that monster.
It is feeding the monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won that day, but it didn't win you from not going back to it, because a lot of the time if we have an incident like that, what do? We avoid at any cost.
Yes. Yes. You think you have to hide your head in shame, but actually it's the power in saying, okay, that was the worst part. Now I'm going to go back. There's so much power in that for yourself. And every time you face it, you get stronger and more fearless. And fearlessness becomes a part of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristy. We are going to continue our conversation, but for those of you who have to go, thank you for tuning into our show. We will go live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. PST. If you're interested in making learning easy for your child, please book a call at www.learningsuccessacademy.com. Until next time, see what's on the other side of fear. Let's ignite, inspire our children to push past their fear and make fear not a factor for them. Let's help our kids learn and grow fearless. Let's influence them and impact them to see unlimited possibilities. Thank you, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. PST. So, those of you who want to continue with us on the conversation, because I can never finish my conversation in 20 minutes, I have so much to ask. So that's why I created the wisdom circle. For those of you who have extra time, stay with us, and Kristy and I will talk about more about tips. If you have any questions, you can post us here. We can answer those as well. But Kristy, we've been talking about this about you went back to the Toastmaster again.
Mhm.
When you went back, did you feel like what other people are thinking about me from last week because I acted this way, that way? You know how you kind of go in and going, I hope you don't remember me from last week. Did that happen to you, or were you forgiving and got over that and you went and said, this is a brand new day?
I think a couple things had, by that time, because I was well past my teenage years when I did that. So I'd kind of gotten past the what people think of me thing.
Yeah.
But I will say Toastmasters is an amazing group, and they were so kind to me the same day after the speech. They gave me back wonderful comments, except for you were shaking. Thanks. Yeah. I was trying not to fall down. But they were kind to me, and they're like, you're going to be fine. Everybody does. The first one is the hardest. And they were so encouraging that very day that coming back the next week wasn't threatening at all.
Awesome. But that's something that our kids go through, right? One experience determines how I'm going to respond to the next time.
Yes.
So the strategy there, if we were talking to a child or a student, what would we give them? What would you say to them?
Oh, yeah. We've, especially middle school and probably high school. It starts maybe in elementary. It's not as bad in elementary, I don't think, but by the time we get to middle school, that's all they think about is what is everyone thinking of me. Yes. That's a tough one because every kid is so unique and different.
Yeah.
But I found the best thing, me as a teacher, I would make myself available for private conversation. So if they came in, say at recess time, and said, Miss J, will you talk to me? I always made time for that. I didn't make time for, I want to come in and hang out in your room and play video games. That was like, no. But if they needed a minute, and that usually it was something related to a bully problem and bully problems can be minor. What we think of as minor, but they're not minor. It could be something like someone keeps making nasty comments to them. It's like, well, they're not hitting
a chair, right? Or is constantly annoying somebody.
Yes.
It's a form of bullying.
It is taking their papers, taking their pencils, hiding them, taking their backpack and throwing it down the hall. Yes. I've just everything up to, flat out, like Hollywood version of bullying, like getting punched in the hallway, like the teachers wouldn't be all over that, but yeah.
But these silence ones are the harder one to get to because you don't know how to tell them to stop because, as I was growing up myself, people would always, like, when they passed by me, they would hit me with their elbow. And I'm like, why did you just touch me? But that was their way of bullying me, right? Like, they just like get out of the way kind of, right?
Yeah.
But, if you get that consistently, your self-worth you question your self-worth.
Yes, you do. And I used to say to my students, there were times when I was in a middle school classroom. One time in particular, we had two boys. Why they were in the same class is beyond me. But I actually physically got between them because they were hitting each other. And they immediately stopped, which let me know immediately that they had self-control. They were just acting out. And I just flat out said, I will not tolerate this behavior in my classroom. And I just laid into them both about why it was so not appropriate. They hear not appropriate all the time, but I was coming more from the standpoint of it didn't solve any problems. Mm-hmm. And then I told them, from now, I'm going to talk to you guys privately. And I talked to them privately and found out what was going on with them. And I gave them strategies one was, you guys need to stay away from each other. Or if you are in this classroom, I'm placing you opposite ends. Mm-hmm. And I made them responsible for themselves. Yes. So it's like you're growing into an adult. You can be responsible. I know you can control yourself. You already proved that to me. So now I need you to step up and grow up here. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like tough love. They were boys, first of all. Boys take that really well. Like, knock it off. I'm not tolerating it. Girls go, blah, 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 blah. And then they have to tell you all their emotional drama that goes with it. Yeah. But then it evolved into where they actually got along with each other. Yeah. Just because it was like, this is a boundary you may not cross. And it was a structure. And you have to find a way, because in the world, you're going to have to deal with people that you may not like. And the answer is not beating them up. Yes. And you may have to walk away. Yes. That happens. But that's okay. That's a better strategy than throwing a punch. Unless, of course, obviously I admit this, I've punched 3 guys in my life. All 3 of them put their hands on me without my permission. And I punched them right in the face. So I admit that, but that was like a kind of like a self-defense, like I was very threatened. And, so, and I did tell the guys, there's a difference between you guys rolling around on the floor because you're in a bad mood. Yeah. And, a situation where you're really in trouble. Yes. So it's tough though. It's tough. But, the kids see bullying coming at them from every direction. Our entire society is the whole political structure is a bully structure. And, you have to do what you're told, and politicians can do whatever they want, but we have to toe the line. And it's a bully structure, and they see it on TV. They see it in the movies. They see it in video games. They see it everywhere. And what do? They mimic it. Copy it. Yeah. So until somebody steps up and says, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. Hey, there's a better way. And let's practice that. Oh, I have a story to tell you. Do we have time for a story? Oh, yes. Okay. So I had a classroom of 50 students, a 7-8 combo. That 13 and 14. Oh, my goodness. I was supposed to teach them argumentative writing, and I'm going, they're not going to cooperate with this. So what I did is I started by teaching propaganda, and I took World War II propaganda. So there was German, there was Russian, there was English, there was American propaganda, and we studied it. Like, what are they trying to show you? And they started noticing how the same thing would be construed a different way, and so I said, could you say they're making an argument for their point of view, and tried to get them around. And then we did debates, but my debates were chocolate versus vanilla, or tea versus coffee. And there are those kids that want to stand up and do that. And then there are those kids they're not going to stand up. And so the first day I let the kids that wanted to stand up, and they did them. And the kids went crazy. I set my rules, and they went crazy for it. The next day I had everybody team up in pairs, and they did it together so that everybody could do it, but not standing up. We worked through up to writing notes that they had a topic and they got 5 minutes to write notes, up to writing something longer and having real debates. and then worked into like, how could you write? Now you've already written it. You've made an argument.
Mhm.
And they went nuts. They loved it. They were crazy. They were like, oh, Miss J, we can't wait to come to your class. So what was the shift? The shift was, number one, and you and I have talked about this before, the current educational model is sit down, be quiet, and do what you're told.
Mhm.
It does not work. It is not learning, and it doesn't work. But
So
the shift was
order
what?
taking. Order
Yes,
taking.
yes. And it doesn't work, and it's really ridiculous. And I was verbal with my kids that I hated it too. So we did it my way. I got called into the principal's office every Friday at 4:00, which is always bad, for the hand slap. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway.
You're
And
enjoying it. You got the kids going. They like
yeah,
it.
and they did. They learned, and all of them, when they turned in their finals papers, they were really good because they got out of it. Has to, like, I knew that there was no way I could fix all of the past, like the lack of teaching phonics, the lack of spelling skills. I couldn't fix that, but I was like, all I want is you make an argument that's valid. And they got lightened up because their thoughts were being honored. Their process was being honored. They were participating, and all the 4 kids in there that I had nothing but behavior problems with were getting along. They stopped fighting in the school. And other teachers were like, what's going on with these? And I'm just, I don't.
They're engaged. They were learning. They were sharing. They had a voice.
They had a voice. They were being heard.
Yes.
And their contributions were being honored. And then I did, at one point I had, this is debate. So if someone disagrees with you, is it going to be conducive to just scream at them? Or what are we learning from this? How do we work a difference out? And what if we can't work a difference out? What do we do then? And I worked them through that emotional stuff, which is perfect for middle schoolers. Yes. Because everything is drama in middle school.
Yeah.
And
they're looking for that identity, right? They're looking for that identity, and then through that identity search, they get little trapped.
Yes. But in
It
terms of fear, even the ones that wouldn't stand up in front of the group and talk, they participated and they went further than they'd ever gone because they stopped being afraid of being perfect, or this illusion that somehow if they couldn't spell every word perfectly, that they would be wrong and they'd get an F and they would fail. And if they fail, then their parents, who knows? I mean, I had 50 kids. Who knows what was going on in some of those homes?
Yes.
And or all those things that are weighing on kids.
Yeah.
And
you remind me of a story. We were at a lodge this winter during Christmas, at a lodge, on a ski lodge, and then there was at the end of it they were playing some music, live music. So I was watching all the kids. Our kids are grown, so they left us. So we were just sitting and watching this, and we were just admiring some of the little ones, right? So the minute the music came on, all the little ones, like the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old, they're all like, having so much fun. They don't care how they move, and it's like their faces lit up and just having like so much fun. And I turned around and looked at all the 12-year-old, the 10-year-old. They cannot even go up. Like they're just sitting like, because they now know that if I go up there and if I do some move, if I look silly, someone will judge me or someone will think of me something. But the 2-year-olds don't have that filter. They don't have anything. They're just like, give me more music. So I was telling my husband how we learn that over time. We start closing ourselves with this fear. What will the other person think? What will the other person think? And then we don't do everything we like.
Yes.
We kind of close ourselves into our own body.
That is so, oh my gosh, you're giving me chills. That is so true. It's literally programmed into us to be afraid. And it's not natural to who we are.
No, because those kids, no problem.
No problem.
They were having a lifetime of fun on that floor. But did I even go up? I didn't go up either, because I also have these filter, right? Over the
Mhm.
years, we get all these filters, experiences, put us on a place where like we just have to sit and be calm. And
Yeah.
until like, I was in my 30s is when one of my coaches said, what other people think of you is none of your business. No, she told me directly, like every
Yep.
day say it. Like it's like your, mantra, or it's like your affirmation every morning. You just say it. Every time it shows up, you just say it. It's none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, you know what the other people would have thought had you gone up there? They would have thought, I wish I could do that.
That
And they can just do it. Just stand up and
do it.
kind of like get over yourself, I guess is the way. That's how I feel about me. It's like I got over myself.
Yes.
Like this.
We are in the way.
Yeah.
We are who we are. We are in the way of us, not anyone
Yes.
else.
Yes. 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 And that is not to say, I mean, I know I lived through a terrible abusive childhood, and I know I have friends that we've talked about different things and abuse is abuse, whatever form it takes. It's terrible. You suffer.
Yeah.
And there are emotional and physical sometimes scars that have to be
Traumas.
dealt with. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's doable. It's very doable. And it just takes that first one. Just say hi to someone. Just say hello to someone on the street. Just pass by, smile at them, and say hello. I do that a lot just because I'm obnoxious. I say I'm obnoxious about it. And sometimes people, they look away from me, or they look down, or they mumble something rude. And I just am like, and it does get to me sometimes. I admit it. Sometimes it's just, really? You couldn't,
Yeah.
you have to say something rude. You couldn't just ignore me. But, that isn't my drama. It's their drama. So,
Yeah. Another
yeah.
thing that I like to touch on in this area is the feeling of you're alone. Like you mentioned a couple of times already, like they're going through the same thing too.
Yes.
Similar feelings or something related to their childhood trauma or their life situation or what is happening immediately before and after. All of
Mm-hmm.
it is happening. So we always is always within our perspective. Like we always look with our lenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that changed my life is I started seeing through other people's lenses. And that stopped me from focusing on my own situation all the time because I was very like
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Uh, because yeah, that's if you realize someone is probably struggling with something, and just say something kind. I had someone, I think it was a librarian. There's something about her face, like I thought it was like she was holding in something, and I said something to her like, I hope you're having a really lovely day, but if you're not, just know that I really appreciate all the help you give me when I come in here. And she burst into tears.
hmm,
And I just kind of stood there. I didn't really know what to do, so I just stood there, and I offered her a tissue and just stood there. And
hmm,
then she kind of calmed herself down, and she goes, "Thank you for being so kind to me." And I thought, I didn't do anything. I just stood there. But sometimes, you just don't know what someone's going through.
yeah.
Yeah.
Being noticed is a big thing, right? You noticed. You
Yeah.
didn't do anything, but you noticed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all sometimes you want.
And that's huge with kids, because kids they will hold it in too. They don't want to tell you. It's huge. Yeah.
Another thing that I used is forgiveness to move past a lot of my fear
Hmm.
because people will, all the time, whatever story that circles in your mind all the time, right? If we could get our children to talk about that, what are you dominantly thinking all the time? If we
Yeah.
can get them to voice that to us, then we know that's what they're struggling with, right? Because whatever we think
Yes.
constantly is what we're thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have an actual tip for parents out there if they want to get their
Yes.
kids. So I did this with a class, and I said, I created a fear beast.
Mm.
And I said, okay, guys, this is the fear beast. And I had them write stories. And for the kids, I didn't care. I told them, I don't care if you draw pictures. I don't care if you talk into at that time it was a tape recorder, or their phones or whatever. However you want to create your story about the fear beast, you can create. And the story, everyone was different, but some of the things, there was one kid, I actually, because as a mandated reporter, I called social services and reported the father. Well, I thought it was the father from the story. And I never know what happens after that, but I was so disturbed by the story. I thought, oh my God, I have to do something for this kid. But most of them were those kind of fabricated, kind of imaginary things. And they started talking to each other. Yeah. And I saw kids going over, a kid would kind of be sitting with their head down, and another kid would go over and sit next to him, put their arm around him and hug him. And I thought, and I just let them start self-determining that. I'm like, if there's compassion happening here, I'm going to allow that. And then we moved all the desks so that they were in a circle, and there was a big open area. Now, mind you, this was a third grade classroom. There was a big carpet in the middle, and I brought in all these big pillows and stuff, and I made I need a break corner. And it wasn't a timeout. It was an I need a break. And I trained them, if they were really just, I'm done, they could go on the pillow and set the egg timer for 3 minutes. And when it went off, they had the option of coming back or having one more minute. And then after that minute, they had to come back. But by empowering them with that, they didn't take advantage of it. They didn't turn it off at like 2 minutes and 59 seconds and reset it or anything like that. They were really, really good about it. And it just made the hugest difference because, we get, how many times at work have you gone in the bathroom and hid out for a minute because you just needed to get away for a minute? You just needed a break.
Yeah, it's really important. Like sometimes some kids sit and, the bathroom break. Of course, some students do overuse it and misuse it.
Yeah.
But just those choices, even like sometimes they become like, I don't have a choice to even do that, right? Some kids take it as it's not a choice anymore for me, and I'm being controlled, right? As well.
Yeah.
It depends on what kind of situation that they're growing up in. So as parents, I think openness to communication, story writing, I love how you brought that in, writing out what they're feeling.
Yes. Or in art, I let them do it any way they wanted to. And I had one kid that built a diorama because he's real kinesthetic, and he had all these little figures, those little plastic toys that boys like, he had bunches of them, and he made a diorama scene and built it out. And it's, I just was like, allow them to express the way that they need to express. If someone had allowed me that space when I was growing up, I might have gone a different way, but I had to kind of do it myself. I had to figure it out myself. Parents are the number one line of defense, because no matter what happens at school, if you have a solid family that's where you're safe and you can talk about things, you're going to be fine. Kids are going to be fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Kristy, if a parent has a shy kid, because you had gone through that, I have gone through that for different reasons, right? It's different reasons. My shyness was because I moved to a new country. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know the language, so I better protect myself. Yours was you were told by your own family members and not shut up. And your father was not nice to you. Yeah, mean in many ways, right? I grew up with the father too, was alcoholic. So we all grow up in different situations, right? Because they can say mean things too, without even realizing it, and damage you forever as well. So that's why I said forgive is such an important part of it, because you can't let others hostage you.
Yes. I love that. The peacefulness of being in the sense in forgiveness and release. The Ho'oponopono prayer is, I love you, please forgive me. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I actually changed the word in my mind to release you.
Mm.
Just this is just my personal thing, is allowing, but releasing them to be on their path no matter what it is, which, and forgiveness is the same thing. It's, you can be on your path no matter what it is. I may not agree with it, and I don't have to subject myself to it, but I can be peaceful within myself about you being on your own path.
I like release better than forgive almost, because when I say that, there's a sense of there's a sense of relief for me,
Yes,
for
yes,
whoever done harm to anybody. So even if the
yeah,
child is working their way up into some state, we can tell our kids to release. Let's just learn to release it. Just let it
yes,
calm.
yes.
It feels calmer.
Oh, it's really fun to get those soap bubble things that kids blow,
Oh
and
yeah.
they blow their anxieties into the bubbles, and you go outside and you play, and they
Oh,
blow their bubbles, and they don't have to say anything. They just think they're, whatever they're wrestling with, they can blow them away in the bubbles and watch them, or they can pop them. It it's kind of a fun activity. I've done that with kids before, and
so if a parent has a child who's struggling with lots of this inner self talk, they
mhm.
can bring it out and say, if they're, in their middle school years, they're still will be able to bubble. Bubble will still be attractive. Not, our kids are growing up faster nowadays, right? So it's
Yeah.
like if you give them a bubble and say blow it away, they'll say, some of them will say that's pretty stupid. I don't think it's gonna go away.
No, but you know what you could do with the older kids is take, from cultural things, weave a history lesson into it, and like those lanterns where they float,
Mm.
and you put the candle in it. Um, you can have them make their own and decorate it and write what they want to release and put it in there, and then you know,
Yes.
it's more of a mature, for their maturity level, but it's the same. It has the same effect of releasing those anxieties or fears, or just feeling like someone cared enough to help them go through a process to get better, to feel better. And that's so important. And fearlessness comes out of that.
Yes.
Fearlessness comes out of feeling better.
Yeah.
And my nephew, I homeschooled him for many years. He once said to me, "You're the most fearless person I've ever known." And I thought, at the time I was shocked. I thought, why would he say that? Because I mean, I was dealing with all my own garbage, Right now, even today, I had this anxiety attack this morning because I'm selling the condo and we're moving out of to a different state, and
Yes.
I was like, what if this is the wrong decision, and what if I just kind of went through this little emotional drama.
See, that's why it feels nice to say the word release, because
Yeah.
just like what you just did. Now the next thing, you can't go any more higher, so you do have to go.
Yes.
You do have to
Yeah.
release it and say, I am moving, but I love change. I'm gonna see what's on the other side of that fear.
And it's an adventure,
It's
because what if this isn't fear? What if it's excitement and I'm misinterpreting it?
yeah. Yeah, but our body reacts the same way for
Yes.
either of those fears, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bad or good, the fear acts the same way. So we need to figure out what is it for? Where's the monster?
Where's the right, right. And is it one that you can stomp on and
Yeah, and that's a good
what?
thing too for little kids. That's a really good strategy, right? Where's that monster that's, creating this fear? Let's name him. Let's squish him or blow him away. These are good strategies for
Yeah.
parents to try out. And
Yeah.
there's no one fits every child, right? Find out what fits for them. What is gonna be the one? Let's close him in a, maybe let's release him and close him in a box
Yeah.
or something. Like
Or draw a picture of them and with parental supervision,
just
burn it like in the sink or with a candle, just light it on
yeah,
match, and
or
yeah.
squish it up, throw him
Yeah.
away.
Throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or draw. Oh, go ahead.
No, one of the things I do myself, it's been so much helpful for me. It comes from, I think, Native Indian culture, is that if you go by a river, that's a running river, and you sit by it and you even think about all of your fears or your worries is where it comes from. But I do it for both. Is that they say that the river takes everything away with it. It flows with it and away from you. And I always go by there and sit, and it always feels like someone just came and released it for me. The
That
flow.
is so excellent.
So,
For people who don't have a river nearby, you can do the same thing in the shower.
oh yeah.
You can put your arms up and let the water run and just
Right.
go, oh, it's all going down the drain.
Absolutely. That's another place I exercise that. So
Yeah.
showing our kids these techniques, right? So they don't have to feel like
Yeah.
with fear, because that is what fear does. Is this gulp of air and you're trapped up here and you can't move anymore. There's no
Yes.
movement.
Yes.
Yes. This has been amazing. This is a great conversation. We shared some strategies and tips, but the parents, of course, have to try it out, what works for them. As I said, our kids are so techy these days. If you tell them to blow it away, they might question you. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, be careful. Languaging is important.
but but
Yeah.
but the other part I said, like, it's none of your business, or even creating a phrase they can keep saying it when they feel anxiety or stress,
Mhm.
right? Keep
Yeah.
saying the same thing over, creating a
Yes.
phrase.
The one that helped me the most, yours was it's none
What
of
they
my
think
business.
is none of my business.
Yes. The one that helped me the most was thinking they're not looking at me. They're worrying about what I think of them.
Mm,
And then purposely, intentionally trying to think of something kind to say to them.
mm,
And that for me was crossing that bridge.
yes.
And you don't
And
always get a nice response back, but most of the time you do.
I think most of the time you will, because you're not
Yeah.
saying anything mean. Why should they
Yeah.
get mad at you for what? You
Yeah.
just said something nice.
Yes, but there are those people that they're gonna hold on to that negativity no matter what, and you just have to let them be like, just walk away and go, okay, be on your path.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love talking about fear.
Yeah.
We all go through them. Moving creates fear. Buying something creates fear. Going to a new place makes you fearful, right? It's
Yeah.
always going to be part of you. So why not make it more enjoyable during that process? It's not going to go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Just yeah, shift it into excitement. Like just the word. I'm not I'm not having anxiety, I'm having excitement.
Mhm.
I'm going to be on a new adventure. Uh,
Opportunities.
it's an yeah, what opportunities, what new people, what new friends are going to come in. Yes.
Yeah. I had to move a couple of times during my divorce with my son. He was young back then. It's actually today's his birthday, 60th birthday. He put throughout all the stressful situation. But one thing he learned is that I showed him we both love change. We both love change. We always like to move. We always like to do things. So has that in him. That change doesn't bring stress. Change actually brings opportunity.
That right there is a fantastic mantra because fear of change, I think, is probably second only to fear of public speaking.
Yes, I want to meet someone who says I never had any fear to speak in public. Like I
Oh,
haven't met anyone. If anyone who, even if you talk to anyone, he's even like a singer, they also have it. They just
yeah.
push past it.
Yeah, and it's the first time. And I recommend Toastmasters to anyone who wants to learn public speaking. They will get you past it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's another thing parents can, introduce or look into for some of the kids if they're old enough. Yes.
Yeah, there's the Toastmasters do teen for the high school students. They
Yes.
do teen it's a like a I don't know exactly how long it is. I think it's a semester and they come
Okay.
once a
Good.
week or something like that. I don't know. Each Toastmaster group might do it a little differently, but yeah, they do have that program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put that link. I'll find it. I think I can find it so for parents can sign up, because that's a good thing to get especially teenagers and into it, because they do have sometimes gaining that voice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
part that we parents can help. But you also have a business where you help homeschooling parents, Barefoot Learning Club.
Yes.
So I will add that as part of our notes in the program as well, the website, so parents who are homeschooling can check that out. you know
Yeah.
you
We're,
you you help them get over the fear of homeschooling.
yes, the
It's
parents.
another fear we didn't talk about.
That's right. Parents actually have fear of homeschooling their kids because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong.
Yes.
And that comes out of the fact that they were not correctly taught in school. And so the extreme phonics that I teach, my belief is, my knowledge is, we can give these kids the absolute best foundation in reading, writing, spelling, and math,
Yes.
the foundation. And if kids can read, by third grade, most kids are reading at about a high school level with this program.
Yes.
Well, if they can do that and they're incoming fourth graders, or say about 9 years old, they can do anything. They can learn anything. They can teach themselves anything. You can go on journeys together and learn stuff together. You learn how to think.
Yes.
And you're not worried about the foundation because the foundation is there. So our program is a combination of academics and play-based. So it's tiny, tiny little lessons that you then play with to let the kids, because those little brains are just little sponges.
Let it
Yeah.
germinate.
Let it connect, and the parents get to play too, and it's a lot of fun, and the kids aren't told to sit down, be quiet, and do what they're told. None of that. No.
Awesome. I love it. You're giving them a choice and voice. I love it. Love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kristy, for staying back with our wisdom circle, and those of you who stayed too as well. But we will continue this next Wednesday with another guest on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. PST. If you're interested in making learning easy for your child, please book a Clarity coaching call at www.learningsuccessacademy.com. Until next time, see what's on the other side of fear. Let's ignite and inspire children to push past their fear and make fear not a factor for them, because it is not a factor if you can push past it. So let's help our kids learn and grow fearless. Let's influence them and impact them to see the unlimited possibilities. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, Kristy.
Thank you, Kohila. Ciao.